first is almost guaranteed to double healthcare costs over the next decade, leave millions more Americans without insurance, leave those with insurance vulnerable to arbitrary denials of coverage, and bankrupt state and federal governments. To prevent nuclear weapons from falling into the hands of terrorists, the Security Council endorsed our global effort to lock down all vulnerable material within 4 years. We of Washington kill financial reform and leave American consumers and our economy vulnerable to another meltdown. Yesterday, the House passed comprehensive reform legislation. Without a new treaty, we'll risk turning back the progress we've made in our relationship with Russia, which is essential to enforce strong sanctions against Iran, secure vulnerable nuclear materials from terrorists, and resupply our troops in Afghanistan. Firefighters and food inspectors could also find themselves out of work, leaving our communities vulnerable. Third, we should pass a farm bill, one that America's farmers and ranchers can depend on, one that protects vulnerable children and adults in times of need, and one that gives rural communities opportunities to grow and the longer-term certainty they deserve. If one of the best measures of a country is how it treats its more vulnerable citizens, seniors, the poor, the sick, then America has a lot to be proud of. We've recovered endangered wildlife species and restored vulnerable ecosystems.
Thank you. Everybody gets a phone. All right. Now, I understand some doctors may feel the need to order more tests and treatments to avoid being legally vulnerable. They spent months carefully crafting a plan that's sensitive to vulnerable communities and industries and that ushers in a critical transition to a clean energy economy without untenable burdens on the American people. But dependence on commodities or a single export has a tendency to concentrate wealth in the hands of the few and leaves people too vulnerable to downturns. So the politics may dictate that they don't vote for health care reform because they think, it'll make Obama more vulnerable. And in fact, a high proportion of the uninsured are actually young people, particularly right after they graduate from college. They haven't gotten a job yet that provides health care, and they are very vulnerable if, heaven forbid, something happens to them. Together, we must cooperate to secure all vulnerable nuclear materials around the world, which will be a focus of our global nuclear summit next year. They're just vulnerable But they also understood that the danger of too much government is matched by the perils of too little. That without the leavening hand of wise policy, markets can crash, monopolies can stifle competition, the vulnerable can be exploited,